Hey, what's up guys? Dan from Masculine Evolution here. I've got a really important message I want to talk to you about, and it's all about identity. Now, any struggle that you have in your life right now, whatever it is, making more money, meeting more women, going towards your mission with more courage, whatever it is, you want to look at shifting your identity in order to manifest that goal, in order to create it in your life, in order to bring it in. And now I'm going to do my best to explain how that is, but it is really important. So if you think about it, what is your identity? Like how is identity formed? Well, there's a lot of different aspects that will create someone's identity. And now other people might identify with you differently to how you identify with yourself. The work here is to not be concerned about how other people identify you as. Only focus on how you identify yourself as. Now, if you're someone who carries a lot of fear, a lot of shame, a lot of the heavier energies, the lower emotional states, that would form a part of your identity. That becomes a part of who you are. It can't be helped. If you're someone who's quite reactional, quite angry, has a lot of pride and judgment, a lot of push into the world, that becomes a part of your identity too. Now notice that both those states are essentially linked to the regulation of your nervous system that comes from all the accumulation of unexpressed emotions that you've stored throughout your life in your body. It also has a lot to do with your beliefs about yourself that make you very reactional to the world. But they're a part of your identity, and you create your life from that. So if you're someone who's always fighting, always pushing, always trying to make more money, like hustle culture, that kind of thing, just creating a lot of stress in your body, that's what you're creating from the identity of being someone who's a fighter, right? And if you have a lot of fear and shame and doubt and worry and apathy, that's a part of your identity too. And you're creating your situation from that place. So you're more likely to just not do anything, like sit back and procrastinate and wait for things to happen, but they never do. That's been me. I know how it feels to be in those states. And I still go into them now and again, like I'm not totally free of them. It's not like I'm never feeling apathetic, of course, because there's always more to push yourself into. There's always more tension to step into. And that's always going to bring up more apathy, more fear, more doubt, more anger, more pride. We're all experiencing all the different emotional states as we go through life. But it's your identity that you're creating from. So that's why someone who identifies as being wealthy will always be able to create and manifest more money, because that becomes a part of their identity. It becomes a part of who they are. The rich get richer, the poor stay poor, because of how they identify. I mean, this knowledge goes back thousands of years. It's been known that all the rich and powerful people know this. I mean, we don't get taught this at school, obviously, but this isn't like anything new. How you identify, your identity is what you create your reality from. I think it was Donald Trump who was told, when he was facing bankruptcy, he was told that he's going to lose his private jet. And he prevented that from happening, because if it did, it meant that it would have got in the way of him earning more money back. Because he knew how important his identity was for the manifestation process. So if he didn't have a private jet, that would affect his identity. He would identify as someone who can't afford a private jet, and that's going to have an effect on the money that he brings into his life. Okay, this isn't a political channel, so I'm not, whether you like Trump or not is irrelevant here. I'm just telling you about a man who knows how to create wealth. If you identify as someone who women love the company of, women enjoy, women want to get to know, don't you think it would make it easier to meet women than if you identified as someone who women don't find attractive, or whatever the story is? So our identity is so important. Now, here's the key. Most people's identities are reactional, which means their identity are formed by the world around them. So if someone says or does something, they react to that, and then that becomes part of their identity. So if you're reacting angrily, that becomes your identity, but it's because of what's going on around you that you're becoming angry. So you're reactional. Same with fear or anger, it's the same thing. So that is disempowering. It's disempowering to allow the world around you to affect the world inside of you. You're allowing the outside world to affect your inside world. Now, the idea of all spirituality and being on this path is about gaining inner power, not external power. Inner power is when you don't need the outside world to be a certain way in order for you to feel a way inside, because it's you that has the power over your internal world, not the outside world. Does that make sense? I mean, you're not going to be able to answer this, but put in the comments if you have any questions, if you need some clarity on this. The outside world doesn't affect your inside world. It's only your thoughts about the outside world and about everything that's happening that's affecting you inside. Whatever it is you blame, groups, if you're a guy and you blame feminism, for example, for not being able to approach women without being attacked, whatever it is you got going on, blaming religion, blaming society, blaming politicians for your current situation, parents, whoever you might be in a process of blaming right now, that's disempowering you, because you're giving the power to things around you. That is putting you in a lower state of consciousness. You want to be able to find the power within to choose who you want to identify. And this is why the manifestations teachers say to not allow your senses to dictate how you feel, right? So if you're not wealthy, you want to start feeling wealthy, your senses will tell you you're not. You'll see the bank balance with your eyes, your senses will be like, well, you're not wealthy, so it's going to be hard to identify as wealthy, right? But the more you practice going in and learning to find the feelings of wealth within you, now you don't need other people or money, certain amount of money, to determine how you feel about yourself in relation to wealth. For this example, you can start walking around with an aura of wealth, of I earn money. Don't you think you're more likely to bring in money if you do that? Of course. Your unconscious mind that can process millions of bits of information at one time will start working in unison with the belief that you're wealthy. I mean, think about it. If you grow up in a family where your parents were CEOs of big businesses earning a lot of money, say they collectively earn 500,000 a year. As you become an adult and you step out into the world, you're going to naturally start earning that amount of money. Now, obviously there's exceptions, but most people will probably want to be earning of a similar amount. Because if you grew up in a family that was bringing in $500,000 a year and you start earning 50k a year, you're probably going to feel like a bit of a failure because of the wealth that you were born into. So as you step out into the world, you'll probably just be gravitated towards, your unconscious mind will put you in the direction of what you need to do to bring in that amount of wealth. Now, if that same person was born into a family where both mum and dad, say, worked in very low paying jobs, they almost certainly, obviously there's exceptions, but they almost certainly won't just start bringing in hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, because that would seem like such a big jump that there would be beliefs around it not being possible. But they would quite happily be earning, let's say, 50k a year, because to them that would seem like a good amount of money. So both growing up in two different families of wealth will affect the identity, and then that affects how that person goes and makes money. And like I say, it's not just in wealth, this works with relationships and everything else. So there seems, might be getting a bit far out here, but spirituality, the idea of it was that God's within, right? The power is within. We can find God within. It's in the heart. And then religion came along and said, no, it's up there. God's up there. So we became disempowered by taking God away from us and putting it up into the sky. And now we had to follow a bunch of rules in order to find heaven in the afterlife, when in actual fact it was always available to us in this life, but it was just a state of mind. We had the power to access heaven or hell within us, but when it was put up there, we became disempowered. It's the same with a lot of things. It's the same with your health. Do you think the government are responsible for your health, or do you think you are? If you put it all onto the government, then don't you think you're going to be a little disempowered? Don't you think you have a pretty amazing body that can do all sorts of incredible things that we don't get taught about? You know, the power of the immune system especially. It's the same, you know, with politicians. If you give politicians the power, if you believe that whoever's in power in your country is what's affecting your life and therefore affecting your internal experience, you're giving them your power, you're disempowering yourself. Don't allow anyone to have the power over you. You have the power over yourself, no one else. These things don't get taught, so they might seem a little unusual at first, but remember this: your internal world is controlled by you, not the outside world. Now, if the outside world's affecting your internal world, it's still coming from you, but it's your thoughts about what goes on around you. Only you can affect what goes on inside of you, not the outside world. But when you can become aware of this, you can start bringing it back to yourself. So, for example, let's say I was bullied at school for having an ugly nose. Now, I'm an adult. I didn't get bullied for having an ugly nose, but let's say I did. Now, I'm walking around as an adult. Someone comes up to me and says, "You've got an ugly nose." Now, there's going to be a lot of probably unexpressed emotions that I'll be carrying as an adult because of the experience I had as a child. So when someone said to me as an adult, "You have an ugly nose," that's going to trigger me a lot, right? Now let's imagine I never got bullied for my nose, which I don't think I did, and I'm walking around as an adult and someone says, "Oh, you've got an ugly nose." That reaction would be totally different. Totally different. But it's the same thing happening in the outside world. In both those examples, someone says, "You have an ugly nose." But the internal reaction is so different. And that's because of the beliefs we have about ourselves that are just being triggered by the outside world. We don't even know most of these beliefs. They're all unconscious. But we react to the world as a result of these beliefs. I mean, our beliefs about ourselves are the lens through which we see the world. So, the person who was bullied as a child, for having an ugly nose, if they could go back in their consciousness and their awareness and relive those moments where they were being bullied and release the emotional baggage that they carry around the state of their nose, Now they're free to walk out into the world, and when someone mentions their nose, they are reactive to it. And then now that allows them to have more power over their life. Obviously, the nose is just one small example. There's many thousands of triggers that we all have that we can't help because of it all comes from our unconscious. And this is the process of healing and then becoming more empowered, because the outside world can't affect our inside world once we know that, once we start seeing it. Yeah, hope that's clear. Thanks for listening. Follow for more and like and subscribe. Thank you very much.